In 1978, a private charter plane took off from a tropical island and vanished into thin air. It wasn't carrying passengers, it was carrying a secret cargo worth $54 million. For 40 years, people said the plane was a myth. They said the treasure was cursed. But marine archaeologist Thomas Reed didn't believe in curses. He believed in coordinates. He spent his life looking for this plane, and in 2018, he finally found it. But what Thomas found inside that wreckage wasn't just gold. It was a tragedy frozen in time, and a dead man who was still holding on to a secret. This is the story of the frantic search for the blue ghost and the terrible price of finding it. Thomas Reed was desperate. He was a specialist in deep water recovery, but his career was sinking. Failed expeditions, dried up grants. His reputation was hanging by a thread. He had spent the last 18 months obsessed with a rumor about a plane that went down in a deep channel off a remote Pacific island. He needed a win, and he needed it now. He flew to the island posing as a tourist, but he didn't spend his time at the resort. He spent it at the dive bars near the docks, asking dangerous questions. For 2 days, nobody spoke to him. But on the third night, a fisherman named Rodrigo sat down next to him. Rodrigo didn't order a drink. He just looked Thomas in the eye and whispered, "I know what you're looking for, and I know where it is." Rodrigo had found the wreck by accident 2 years ago while checking lobster traps. He said the plane was sitting in 90 feet of water, perfectly preserved. But Rodrigo was terrified. He believed the local stories, that the cargo was blood money, stolen from a sacred site. He hadn't told a soul because he didn't trust the locals not to kill him for the location. He needed an outsider, someone with gear, someone with money. He looked at Thomas. "We split it, 50-50, but we go tomorrow and we tell no one." Thomas looked at this nervous fisherman. He knew he should walk away. It felt wrong. But desperation makes you do stupid things. Thomas shook his hand. 50-50. The next morning, the ocean was dead calm. They took a small, rented boat out to the channel. Rodrigo navigated from memory. No GPS, just landmarks. After an hour, he cut the engine. "Look down," he said. Thomas peered over the rail. The water was so clear it was dizzying. And there, nearly 100 feet down, resting on the white sand, was the plane. It looked like a toy. It looked like a ghost. Thomas suited up. The dive felt heavy. As he descended, the silence of the ocean pressed in on him. He approached the wreck. It was a 1970s single-engine prop. The fuselage was crusted with barnacles, but the windows were intact. The cabin was sealed. He tried to pry the door. Locked. He tried the emergency hatch. Fused shut by corrosion. He was inches away from the discovery of the century, but he couldn't get in. His air was running low. He had to surface. He needed a pry bar. He needed heavier tanks. But the ocean wasn't going to give him a second chance. By the time Thomas broke the surface, the sky had turned a bruising purple. A tropical squall had materialized out of nowhere. The wind was screaming. Rodrigo was yelling, pointing at a wall of water rising behind them. They never stood a chance. A massive swell hit the boat broadside. Thomas was thrown across the deck, his head slamming into the metal railing. His vision went white. The last thing he heard was Rodrigo's voice. Then, silence. Thomas woke up drifting. The boat was gone. Rodrigo was gone. He floated for hours, clinging to a piece of wreckage, hallucinating in the heat. Eventually, a fishing trawler spotted him and pulled him out. He had survived, but he had lost his partner. And he had lost the location of the wreck. Back in the village, Thomas was a pariah. The locals knew he had gone out with Rodrigo, and they knew only one of them came back. The only person who would talk to him was an outcast named Andy. Andy sat with Thomas and poured him a drink. "You found it, didn't you?" Thomas nodded. Andy leaned in. "Do you know what's on that plane?" Andy explained the legend. 40 years ago, a treasure hunter had raided a tribal burial site on the mainland. He stole a sarcophagus, a ceremonial coffin containing a diamond the size of a fist. He tried to fly it out, but the plane vanished. "The locals say the water took it back," Andy said. "They say it's not meant to be found." Thomas thought about Rodrigo. He thought about the debt he now owed. "I'm going back," Thomas said. "I have to finish it." Andy smiled. "Then I'm coming with you." They found the site again, working off Thomas's memory of the reef. This time, they brought a pry bar and a lift bag. Thomas went down. He wedged the bar into the cargo hatch. He pulled until his muscles burned. With a groan of tearing metal, the hatch flew open. He swam into the darkness of the cargo hold. And there it was. Strapped to the floor was an ancient tribal sarcophagus, but next to it was the pilot, or rather, what was left of him. A skeleton, still buckled into the jump seat. He was still wearing the tatters of his clothes, and in his bony hands he was clutching a leather satchel. Thomas gently took the satchel. He attached the lift bag to the sarcophagus and sent it up to the surface. But as he looked at the skeleton one last time, he realized something. The man wasn't looking at the treasure. His skull was turned toward the door. He had died waiting to go home. On the deck, Thomas and Andy pried open the wooden casing. Inside, wrapped in oilcloth, was a burial figure inlaid with gold, and inside the figure was the diamond. Deep blue, flawless. It was mesmerizing. Later, it would sell at auction for $54 million. But Thomas wasn't looking at the diamond. He was looking at the wet leather satchel he had taken from the skeleton's hands. He opened it. Inside were waterlogged journals and a photograph. It was a woman and a child. The thief wasn't some evil villain. The journals revealed he was a desperate father who had found the artifact hoping to secure a future for his family. He had spent his final moments in that dark, cold plane, holding on to the picture of the people he would never see again. The diamond was sold. Thomas and Andy were rich beyond their wildest dreams, but Thomas couldn't enjoy the money. Not yet. He hired a private investigator. He tracked down the woman in the photograph. She was an old woman now, living in South America. For 40 years, she thought her husband had abandoned her. Thomas flew to her house. He sat at her table. He told her the truth, that her husband hadn't left her, that he had died trying to come back. He gave her the satchel, and then he slid an envelope across the table. It contained a massive portion of his share of the fortune. It wouldn't bring him back, but it was the truth. We often think of treasure as gold or diamonds or cash, but Thomas Reed learned something else in the deep water that day. He found the diamond, yes, but he also recovered the truth for a widow who had spent a lifetime wondering why. Sometimes, the most valuable thing you can bring back from the dead is the story.